So that was our little video clip that we launched on social media, like I said, a year ago this month, because we was wanted to get our name out there and tell people who we are and what we're doing. So what is Project ENERGI, which stands for Engaging New Educators Through Growth and Retention Initiatives? So we are a collective initiative that focuses on kind of cultivating and retaining early career educators. And we do this under the tutelage of NEA, but in partnership with AEA and the Huntsville Education Association. So this is a collaborative effort where we try to involve our stakeholders, our community members, and our education partners, because we need their support in offering supports to our early career educators. So the Project ENERGI leadership team includes these following members, 6 of which are present today. Our 2 guys could not make this trip with us. Well, like we said earlier, myself, I'm Moneike, the team lead. We have Ms. Princess Jones, we have Dr. Lynette Alexander, we have Ms. Sandra Selden, Mr. Sam Womack is not with us today, Ms. Moneike Allen is back, there's Ms. Michelle Cunningham, and Mr. Ayende Minor could not make it today as well. But this is our team. And we are the ones that put the work into it, trying to support our early career educators. So, thank you, ma'am. So our mission and vision, as I've already said several times, ultimately is to help the early career educators, because we don't want them to leave, we want them to stay. But we partner with our community stakeholders and our schools to offer these supports, because we want to empower them, which ties into our vision. We want to keep them engaged by offering different events that they can come to and participate in. And then through this engagement, we hope to enhance their pedagogical skills and other leadership capacities to make them feel like they can do this job and they can lead if they should choose to. So this initiative is totally centered around early career educators and their voice, because they're important and we want them to feel important. Because like we say, we want them to stay. So who are the early career educators? They can come in many shapes, forms, and fashion, but anybody that has 0 to 5 years of experience, that's who we are considering the early career educators. You heard Ms. Moneike refer to herself as a non-traditional ECE, which means that she didn't take the traditional path to get that way, and that will be on the alternative side. And then we do have our traditional ECEs, which are those individuals who went through some teaching pathway in college, and they are in the field. So those are our early career educators. So under this NEA Equity Center framework that we use, they have their own data that they use, analyze, and from their data, they came up with some supports. And from those supports, you get change ideas, and from the change ideas, you figure out your goals. So on the screen, what you see are the NEA's supports and their collective goals. You will notice under the multifaceted EC supports that 4 of them are kind of highlighted in purple. So it might be kind of hard to see from where you are. But those are the 4 that we, Project ENERGI, are utilizing as our supports that we're offering for our ECEs. So that would be the sustained and differentiated new teacher orientation, training for coaches, mentors, and administrators, ongoing professional learning, and early career educator groups. And under NEA's collective goals, these multifaceted supports are being offered with an equity-centered focus to go across the retention rates, or to improve the retention rates for early career educators, and like I said, building their confidence in their craft. Good? All right. Promise we're not going to talk to you guys the whole time. We're going to have you guys doing something. All right, so we should get the meat of the matter out of the way. So let's bring it home for us. Alabama. Let's take a moment to kind of look at the data that's presented to you. So this is, as it states, a statistical overview of Alabama. And what you are looking at on this map is the retention rate of new teachers that have been calculated if they stayed in the same district for 3 consecutive years. Okay, so using that as the preface, we only have 18 out of the 143 school districts in Alabama that have a retention rate for first time teachers of more than 60%. Only 18. Those are the areas you see highlighted in green on the map. And the darker the green, the greater the retention rate is. So the highest is in the dark green, and of course the lowest is in that pink color. And out of this information from the statistical overview, the non-traditionally prepared teachers are only retained about 50% of the time. That's people like Ms. Allen that we brought on to the team for that perspective. So that's Alabama's data. So looking at some national data, I'll give you guys an opportunity to kind of talk about this here. But using national data, we have this information. 8% of teachers leave the field yearly. And that's not just early career educators, that's educators collectively, veterans too. 45% of early career educators leave the field within their first 5 years of teaching. Almost half, right? And then we have an astronomical number here. This 171% of teachers under the age of 30 are more likely to leave the profession. Y'all already know, I'm like, Right? So, Ms. Jones is going to give you guys an opportunity to have some discussions here.
All right, so guys, as you can see, we spend quite a bit of time looking at the research. We kind of come up with we run into stumbling blocks, into issues, and the first thing that Dr. Alexander will remind us of is, what does the data say? Can we look at some data, and can we look at some similar districts? Can we look at some similar situations and see what research says, so that when we start to implement things, we're implementing research-based practices. And so we have, Ms. Garrett's presented to you some data, and we have 3 questions that are tied specifically to the data. The first one, if we have 8% of teachers that leave the field early, then what are some direct impacts of teachers leaving the field? Like, what are some direct impacts to the teachers? What are some direct impacts to the teachers that actually are staying? Can you imagine that this happened to us, like half our teachers left on a grade level 1 year, and you're left? What does that do to the culture of your grade level, to the culture of your school? Discuss the urgency of impacting ECEs in their very first 5 years of the profession. Why is it needed? Why is it important? Why do we need to do that right now? Because if they're leaving within the first 5 years, if you think about them on year 3 and you give them support on year 4, well, they made their mind up, and by year 5, they're gone. So we need to talk about why it's urgent that we begin to put in some strategies to keep them in place right now. And then last, what are some engagement strategies to implement that can target this subgroup of educators, those educators that are kind of under 30, between 20 and 30, they're coming out of college, and you get them, and by 25, if they're coming out at 20 or so, 21, you get them 25 and 26, and they're ready to go. What can we do that will keep them engaged and want them to stay in the profession before they get married or before they have children, things of that nature? All those different factors that are going to impact them. So we're going to take a second. We're going to give you guys about 7 minutes. And we're going to give you see some chart paper on the board. There are some sticky notes on your tables. Have a roundtable discussion. Discuss the 3 questions and then prepare a response as a group. One person can kind of pick a question to respond to write. And I want you guys to use the sticky notes to provide us some ideas on some direct impacts, why the urgency is important, and what are some strategies that you think that we can implement. And we're going to give you guys 7 minutes to do that. Any questions, guys? All right, thank you. Sticky notes are on the table. A couple back here, so some impacts of just the teachers leaving the field. We have students that lose continuity, educators who say they have an increased workload. That is a real big one, guys. When you have teachers that leave, if it's in the middle of the year, it's at the end of the semester, one of the things you're going to find is that until that teacher's replaced, we have to pick up the slack. You have to go in, you have to cover those classes, because the student learning doesn't stop just because the teachers left. They still need us. And so as educators, we do what we need to do, right? We're going to step in, we're going to provide them everything they need, but there's a burden almost that's put on us when we're having to work in conditions where we don't have the staff because they decided to leave us in the middle of the year. The morale of the school drops, there's a lack of support, you get the larger class sizes, you have responsibilities that's not shared or spread. The wealth is just not spread. It's just you get it, right? And it really just helps the schools, not helps, but it impacts the school by the morale dropping and the climate and culture just shifts because you need teachers in the building. Impact the EC engagement for those teachers that 5 year or less that are leaving the profession. We have the urgency is to keep them. They need sincere and dedicated mentors. We had a great conversation at our table about it. There's some intentionality that goes into that. You need to make sure that your efforts are intentional when you start to mentor, because there are going to be ECEs that are depending on you, and what you're giving them is maybe all that they get. So if you drop the ball and you don't provide them with what they need, and you're not intentional in your actions when you're mentoring them, then you may be setting them up for a career that's not going to be successful, and they'll be one of those 5 that fall within that 45%. And under that are leaving, support the ECE and teach ECE things that are not taught in college. Oh, I got one for that. Ask them what they need. Professional development with ways and time to absorb and implement things. Focus on the retention, the pay, the stipends, the benefits, and give them long-term mentoring. You know, I know a couple of people that kind of wonder, well, why does a person that has 5 years in education need a mentor? Because you know what? The first year they might have been figuring it out and they really didn't have a mentor. In the second year, they were just grasping things and they finally got classroom management and they're together. In the third year, they focus on their curriculum instruction, but they need to wrap it up and help the pieces fit together. So they need mentoring still at 5 years, and we need to be willing to give that. So thank you guys for sharing this information. We're going to tell you just a little bit now about why we need Project ENERGI specifically in our area. You can think about why you need it or may need it in your area, but we're going to specifically talk about Huntsville for just a second.
Okay, so I am a true Huntsvillian. I guess that's why they gave me this slide. I went to elementary school, middle school, high school in Huntsville. Went to A&M, which is in Huntsville. And got my master's in Huntsville. So anyway, so Huntsville is my thing. And you would think, you all from Alabama don't believe the hype about Huntsville. You already know that, but don't tell everybody. But most people think it's a very pretty well off city to live in. It was recognized as one of the top growing cities in the United States. It's very metropolitan. We have NASA there. We have Redstone Arsenal there. We consider ourselves a think center, and what that means is if anything went down nuclear or anything happened, we think possibly we could be considered as a very dangerous place to live at that time and point because of Redstone, because of all the technology and all of that there. So, very calm, quiet city. It's a great place to raise a family, but guess what? We still have a teacher retention issue. We have a lot going on. And I'll say this, a lot of the research that we read, one of the number one things that would keep a young educator with that system or not was salary. And I'll tell you from our surveys, our empathy surveys, and we'll talk about that, salary wasn't mentioned in Huntsville. I mean, it's way down. Maybe it was, out of a list, maybe 5 or 6. So why Huntsville? Because this is a national issue. Everyone has the issue as far as I know. And definitely Huntsville is a prime place to talk about and try to implement this. So that's why we're in Huntsville, trying to make some changes for our ECEs. Okay, so that's our why.
All right, so with Project ENERGI, we have 4 initiatives that are going for us, and we're going to take a moment to talk about each one of them. So we'll start. You see, there are 3 of our logos, and we have our main one in the corner. But we'll tell you a little bit about each one as we progress through.
All right, guys, so we're going to start off with our first baby. This was the first project that we actually got up and running when we decided year 2 is considered our year of implementation. And so year 1, we actually did a lot of research, qualitative research, exploring the needs of our early career educators. Year 2, we had to plan and we had to do something with the data. So based on our data that we found, we came up with 4 change ideas, 4 specific areas that we need to focus on to provide support to our ECE. So the first program or the first change idea was professional development. We understood that our early career educators were not getting the professional development that was centered around their needs. Now, they may get a technology professional development from the district, they may get these general blanketed professional developments, but what about professional development that was designed and that would be implemented that specifically and strategically focused on what they need? So we came up with Project ENERGI's teach and learn sessions, and the idea of these sessions was that ECEs could come to the professional learning sessions once a month on a Saturday. They could participate in the session. They would receive professional learning credit for it. They would receive a stipend for participating in it, and they would be provided an opportunity to learn something, take it back into their classroom, come back next month, share about what worked, what didn't work, and then later you will talk about our learning lab, but then use that learning lab component to do a deeper dive into what they needed. So we kind of designed intentionally just to support them, but it focuses on and provides interactive professional learning opportunities for early career educators. It provides strategies and resources that participants can apply to their classroom. We incentivize our participants, and it gives them an opportunity to connect, because networking is real big with ECEs. They need to know that they're not the only one in the classroom by themselves struggling. They need to know that they can sit at a table and they can be honest, they can be transparent, and they can say, hey, I feel like I'm failing. What are you doing? And it's another ECE at the table that can say, well, I feel the same way too, and this is what I'm doing, but let's do this together. And all of a sudden, they begin to get or build a network of educators, a network support that's providing them resources they may not have even thought of. So that's our PEDALS program, and we call that PEDALS, Project ENERGI's Teach and Learn Sessions. That's PEDALS. That was the very first initiative. Our second initiative was our Project ENERGI Learning Labs. We actually just implemented this in January. It was a thought. We knew we needed to do it. We had some transitions in our team, so we tabled it in the fall semester. We picked it back up this semester. And the Learning Labs just provide our ECEs with an opportunity to do a deep dive into content, a deep dive into technology, a deep dive into classroom management, whatever it is that they might need. We're giving them a deep dive into it. We're doing it on Sundays from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. We started off doing it twice a month. Now we're doing it once a month. Is that correct? Started off doing it twice a month. Now we're doing it once a month. But we do provide them that opportunity. And another thing that we kind of are standing on is for ECEs by ECEs, because we have a lot of ECEs that are stepping up and saying, hey, I may not be great in the classroom management, but let me tell you about this application that I'm using in my classroom that I'm really good at. And I know ECEs could use this, and they come and they share and they participate. They become facilitators. We're growing their capacity. We're growing leadership capacity. Every time we get an opportunity to give them a platform where they can show someone else what they're doing, they're strengthening their leadership skills. So that's something that we do also. But it's dedicated to empowering our ECEs, fostering that community, providing tailored resources, building ECE confidence, providing supportive and dynamic space. And by supportiveness, we mean you have veteran educators that are attending. They're showing up. They're showing up in the spaces for our ECEs and saying, hey, I'm here because I have some experience and I know you need it. And if you should start to fall or you should start to fail, I'm here to show you some different things that you can try, because we want to see you successful. So even though we focus on the ECE component, we welcome our veteran educators to be an additional support system for our early career educators.
And this helps us address that mentoring and coaching change idea.
Yes.
And our third component is CORE, which is led by Dr. Alexander.
Okay, so CORE is somewhat my baby, and it stands for Creating Opportunities to Retain Educators. And CORE came out of necessity. We began the work and found out very quickly that we needed to work on our relationships and partnerships with the school system. I'm very proud of CORE and what we've done with it. And again, it's a growing space for us. We just continue to support, nurture, and they continue to give us access, right? And support what we're doing. So we're seeing the relationship increase and build as we go. But that was a tough part for us because we could not get to the ECEs with this initiative during the first year.
And our fourth part we are still working on, and that's our affinity group initiative. It's kind of touchy-feely because with the affinity groups, we want to look at racial disparities, racialized experiences. So we are taking baby steps in going into this aspect because, as we said earlier, leading into it, Huntsville is still under a desegregation consent order So we tread lightly when we start to talk about those things. What does that mean? I'm gonna toss it to Dr. A in explaining the desegregation consent order. She can give you the administrative perspective of that. Treading lightly with the affinity groups, we started with some different affinities. Like when we have our PEL sessions, we go and break up into groups like veteran educators, early career educators, male, female, and secondary, elementary. So we are taking baby steps into it to just kind of have our participants participate in these groups. And then so when we do finally get to that aspect, they're gonna already they're gonna already be like, okay, we've been grouping all along, so let's just an opportunity, a safe space for them to be able to, express their concerns or things that are going on with them. So those are our 4 initiatives that we have going on under Project ENERGI. And we also have what we call our ECE ambassadors, which are early career educators in different schools that we're asking to be a conduit for us to give information to early career educators, because ultimately, if they don't get the information, they don't know what's going on. So we're just trying to find every avenue possible to make sure they're getting the information, right? So next we have a little reflection video activity for you guys. So you want to preface it?
So guys, she's going to show you the video in just a second, and then once she's shown you the video, we're going to come back to this QR code that we have shown, and we're going to allow you an opportunity to look at the video and then respond to it. It's kind of interesting, and give us your thoughts and think about your district that you're in, and do you have any components in place that may have supported some of the things that you saw in the video. Guys, I do want to get to our activity. So what does your district plan look like? We have salary matrix, not sure. I don't feel like the district has an intentional plan. I understand. Some mentors are available. There's little else available. We have teams, we have bonus, but not nearly enough. Thank you guys for sharing. So what I'm hearing is that we don't have like a comprehensive plan, or most districts don't have a comprehensive plan to support not only just early career educators, but almost like teachers in general. Like salary matrix is a teacher-wide problem, not just with our early career educators. But what we're finding with the plan and with the steps and things that we're putting in place is that we're trying to strategically highlight these things and then try to get a seat at the table to start to discuss some of the things that we're seeing based on some of the data that we're collecting. All right, so I think this may be my last slide, guys. But so we're going to talk about from inception to implementation. So from where we began to where we are now. And so on your paper, you have several pieces of paper, but I want to actually start with this one. I'll talk about this in a second. So we went through 4 big phases in order to get to where we are today, which is implementation. But we started off with investigation. We actually had to go in and we had to look at what are some problems. We had to ask some questions. We had to start to talk about what's some data that we can look at. If one of the responses was, well, I don't know what my district has. When we first started, we had the same kind of responses. Well, we're not sure what we have, but we want to find out. So we started to do some investigation, trying to meet with our central office staff, reaching out to the superintendent saying, hey, can we meet with you, our president, and asking, can we start to discuss some of the things that you're seeing and how we can start to resolve some of those issues. And then we went through our own data collection, and we started with identifying a strategic goal. We said that we wanted to interview 10% of our district's early career educators. So that ended up being about 30 teachers, because we found out that there were about 300 early career educators last year. And so the goal was to interview 30 early career educators to get a good pool of what they need and what we can do to support them. And then after that, we analyzed that data and we began to plan, because we had to plan after we understood what they need, what we were going to do specifically. And lastly, we're at implementation, where we're taking the ideas and we plan around the ideas. And now we're starting to implement programs and initiatives that support the things that they say that they need. And we are doing this equitably.
Okay, so as we began in the training that we participated in, we would start doing some of the activities, and NEA would remind us to always add an equity lens to it. equity, ensuring that everything includes equity is the foundation of everything that we do. It is the focus of our work. It accounts for the nuanced needs, and that means the complex needs and experiences of Black, Indigenous people of color. So you have to add that lens because, for one thing, we are losing a lot of teachers, but we're losing an overwhelming number of teachers of color. Okay? Teachers of color. So it's important that we take I like for them to say, we purposely reflect upon the work. Okay? I love that word there. Okay, so there's a lot of research out there, but the one thing that kind of stood out to me was the one in the middle that said, by Johns Hopkins University, that said, Black students who just have one Black teacher by 3rd grade were 13% more likely to enroll in college, and those who had 2 were 32% more likely. That one kind of stood out. And it makes you think about, if I don't see anyone that looks like me, that could be Black, Hispanic, whatever, Asian, whatever. If I never see anyone that looks like me as a doctor, teacher, lawyer, how do I know it exists? How do I know it's out there? It's important that I see people that look like me at the school level, okay? Because some kids only know the world that they live in. Okay, next. Okay, so real quick, and I'm going to shorten this for the sake of time because we want you to get through the whole process. We're going to do a real quick equity activity on your desk, on your table. Lord, on your desk, on your table. You have a scenario, and I've just created a scenario so that we can have like minds at our table, because I kind of figured that people will be from all over the United States and all different experiences and levels. So we have a scenario. I won't read it, but basically with this activity, what you would do, what I'm going to do is I'll give you a topic. Okay, this school district is having issues with retaining teachers, and they're going to try and come up with some ideas. And Ms. Anderson is their union president of 25 years, so she's going to lead these retention efforts. They have some data, and out of their data, there are some areas that they are going to address that can hopefully impact these young teachers' decision to stay or leave. So some of the evidence that came out is this table will look at need for additional administrative support. I'll tell you what to do with that in a moment. This table will look at classroom discipline. Table back there will look at sense of belonging. And this table here will look at opportunities to grow and develop. Okay, the example is you're going to add an equity lens. Okay, first statement will be just the strategy of how you will implement. The second statement will be how you change that to ensure that there's an equity lens. Okay, so my example is advocate for the teacher's voice. So one thing that we did to advocate for teacher voice is every time we have a pedals training, we have a panel of ECEs. And they're able to come, and we sit 3 of them in front, and they're able to talk about just various topics. Classroom management. I don't feel like I'm a part of the team at my school. Whatever those topics are, they're able to have teacher voice. Now, second part of that, the way I add the equity lens is we ensure that the panel people are diverse, right? So you're not hearing just one perspective, one voice. You've added that equity lens to make sure that the panel's diverse.
Okay, move from there. All right, so step 1 is investigation.
All right, so before we can begin our investigation, guys, one of the things we had to do was build a team. You're going to need someone to work with you as you begin to do the work. And so our leader, Ms. Garrett, was very strategic in putting a diverse team of people together. We've had a kind of shift in our team over the last year and a half or so. And we still work to get our ambassadors and everything that we're implementing to be a reflection of diversity. So that was one step, building your team. The next step was us reviewing. When we said we need to know what was in place, we had to take a moment and review our district's retention efforts, and we did that through what we call mapping. And we'll talk about mapping in just a second. That's actually an activity that's associated with that. So we reviewed what was in place, where was the power, where was the influence, what could we do and who could we do it with, and what if it wasn't there and there was a deficit, what could we work to provide to support or to even implement if it was not even there. So that was some of our thoughts. The second part was research current induction processes and ECE support. Again, research-based is really, being research-based was really important to us, so we just went back to the research. What does the research say? What does NEA research say? What does our academic research say? How can we move forward and understand that we're implementing research-based practices in our work? And then the last one we did was conduct interviews of diverse sampling of ECEs. I told you guys that our goal was 10% of ECEs for our district, and so we actually interviewed about 30 early career educators, and we made sure that when we were doing those interviews, we had a diverse pool of interviewees that we worked with. And you can skip this side, Ms. Garrett. We've already talked about the importance of building your team, but one of the most important things we did when we built our team, after the team was together, we established a clear mission, vision, and a goal. We needed to know as a team what we were doing, why we were doing this, and what was the vision of as we carried this mission out, what was the vision? What do we want to see? And ultimately, we want to see ECEs being retained and being supported and flourishing in their profession. So in investigating, guys, you have a sheet on your table. I think there should be enough for each person to take receive one, and I think we have a couple of extras in the back. But stakeholder mapping. So I can say that one of the most important things that we learned with our collaboration with NEA was how to do mapping. How do you figure out who the people that you need are and how to get to them? And so I'm going to move just a little bit closer so I can see this. But with mapping, it allows you to identify key influences in your local and district that can help you to impact or support your campaign. So you need to know who you need and why you need them and how you're going to connect with them. So we focused on 3 different types of connections. Our local connections, that included people such as the executive board members of the Huntsville Education Association, the building representatives that were working in the buildings, actively engaging members, all members in general, and then also our UNICEF director having a collaborative relationship with him, and any of the staff affiliates with AEA. That was our local connection through the Huntsville Education Association. Then there were our district connections. So we reached out to board members, central office personnel, district directors, curriculum coaches and instructors, principals and assistant principals. We understood that we need to have a relationship with them in order to get this work done. And lastly, we had a community connection that included like reaching out to councils and boards, city personnel, businesses and vendors, and then community outreach organizations. So when we did all that, we had driving questions, and I provided some of them for you, such as what is the ask of the targeted group of people? So when I say ask, each time we met, whether it was a social event or whether it was a more formal event such as professional development or an in-service or whatever it was that we might have been doing, we had a specific ask that we presented to the participants. If it was a social event and we were going to feed, we were going to have a good time and they were going to network, we had a survey attached to it. We needed some data. It was something we needed to collect. If it was professional development, we had inter-session surveys, we had before-session surveys, we had things tied to the incentives so that, you're going to be incentivized for coming and participating, but we need some data from you guys. We need to seek, we have an understanding, we have a specific ask. And so we always begin by sharing with our participants that, hey guys, this is the ask for today. And we lay it out for them and they understand that and participate in whatever it is we're doing, that's what they would need to do. And we just showed you the mapping activity because at the end, when you begin to talk about a district plan for yourselves, you'll want to understand that this mapping will help you. And yours might not be local connections. You might want to map your building. You might want to say, how many of the teachers in my building are members and how many are not? How many engaged members and how many? You might want to map out how many of the teachers have mentors and how many do not, and what can I do for the teachers that do not. So just think about how you can use mapping to do the work that you might need to do around retention.
So it's like you said with that, you don't think about your key players. So when you start to think about who do we need to talk to, who are the key players? It could be board members, key principals like Dr. A alluded to, but think about who the key players are.
All right, so this is just an example of what we did when we began to do the mapping after we identified that we needed principals. Okay, so principals, we understood we needed them. So when we got them and we got an opportunity to talk with them, this was a product of what we got. We were able to identify what Huntsville City has in place. We looked at school-initiated supports for early career educators, and then what we needed was what do they need. We were able to get that information from them. They need an effective mentoring program. They need to develop a principal mentorship program. They need to provide professional development that caters to the ECE needs. They need to create a mentoring handbook for administrators so they understand what they were supposed to do. So even though Cora, you want to pick up on what you were seeking from them?
I just want to mention that this was some important work because, you know, we're kind of running ourselves ragged trying to get this up and going. And we realized that we needed the administrators to help us. But when we started asking, we had the administrators in and we began to ask them, how could we help them help the ECEs? They listed, okay, this is what the school is providing in support of onboarding, mentorship, any supports that the State Department is providing for them. And they mentioned all of these things, okay? Then I said, okay, what at the school level, or do you have, is in your toolbox, is in your powers, you know? And so they mentioned the coaching cycle, mentoring, conferences. And so I started thinking, and I had to go back to Ms. Garrett and say, hey, they think all this stuff is like working. Like they think they've got a lot going on and it's working. So how do you convince a school district that according to the surveys of these ECEs, they still don't feel supported enough to stay? So something's not going together. So this was that mapping, who do we need? Then it got to, okay, we got them on board, but this is the mindset. So the work is really, it's a huge job. It's a huge work to do. So this was another part of the map and a good example, but we had to table this right here because I'm like, we got to come to a place where the principals understand that it's not work. That's not it. Okay.
She's exactly right. And so through the investigative stage, we kind of came up with the 5 keys that we felt like worked for us and helped. Impartiality is huge. You heard us say equity lens several times. But you've got to eliminate your own biasness when you start talking to early grade educators because their experience is not your experience. So if you go in thinking, oh, well, I could do that, they're not you. So impartiality was huge. We kept asking questions, kept digging because we needed to get this information. We really found out early in that in order for the ECEs to talk to us, we had to have connections. They had to feel comfortable enough to tell us this information because we didn't want them feeling like, aha, gotcha. Because it wasn't a gotcha moment. We just wanted you to open up and talk to us. We used the evidence from what they stated, and then we took that and the results we used for the next portion of it. So those were things that we feel like were our 5 keys to a successful investigation. And so with that, we kind of move into the next part, which was our actual data collection. And this is where we were focusing on making these connections so that they felt comfortable enough to talk to us. So in step 2, we looked at the empathy interviews, and you guys understand how hard it was for us to actually get the ECEs to talk to us. You know, yeah, they had to trust us, right? And so once
it goes back to that culture in Huntsville City.
Yes, because we had some other stuff going on in our district at that time, so they didn't really know who they could talk to without it coming back on them as in a negative light. So We wanted to get their true feelings about their teaching experience. Then once we did finally get enough information, we had to sit down as a team and look at this and say, okay, what is it that they're saying? We had to segregate the data, and we coded it so that would help us figure out what we needed to put in place to be the supports that they were looking for. So that helped us identify the patterns and trends. And then, of course, as we've alluded to several times, we had to keep in mind that equity lens to our data, and so that we didn't kind of overlook or overshadow anybody as we were moving through this. Since we're talking about the interviews, the empathy interviews that we conducted, so the essential components of it. So we're gonna kind of look at some of these things here. We're gonna do a little activity where you can hear a mock interview. But here are some of the things we want you to think about as we go through this little scenario here. The informal approach, maybe in a one-on-one conversation. You don't want to feel like it's three or four people interviewing one person. That may be a little intimidating. So just something relaxed, developing that trust, encourage transparency, and seeking clarity, asking follow-up questions, and then network for potential interviewees. Ask them, is there somebody else that we can interview and talk to? So on your tables, I'm gonna let Dr. Alexander explain this, but on your table, she's holding up the next little paper that you're gonna need to use. And it's our empathy interview activity.
Okay, so I know I'm kind of I'm trying to get through everything, because at the end, we're asking that you do a kind of a rough draft of a retention plan. So I do not mean to undermine any step in the process, okay? Because every single piece that we're presenting was important. It was critical. Okay, so again, because of the climate of our district, the empathy interviews were very challenging. So again, we went back to mapping. We touched every other part of this initiative. Miss Moneike Allen, I know you, is the interviewee, and she is the ECE that's being interviewed, and she is actually an ECE, okay? All right, so you're gonna listen for any opportunities, and when I say opportunities, was Michelle's techniques? Did she take opportunities to probe? Did she develop trust? Just observe her mannerism as she's doing the interview, okay?
How are you doing today? Awesome. Thanks for asking. Hey, listen, I know you wanted to meet on Zoom. I do thank you for taking time to meet with me, but in person works so much better for me than Zoom, so I'm glad you came out, okay? All right. Is that better? Can you hear me? I want me to talk my teacher voice, I can. Oh, okay. All right, so go ahead and tell me, what are the best parts about being a teacher?
One rewarding aspect of teaching is witnessing students' growth and academic process and building meaningful connections with my students.
Okay, and when you say growth, what do you mean by growth?
Without establishing a connection and fostering a sense of belonging, students are reluctant to learn from you.
Oh, okay. Well, tell me about a time when you felt disappointed.
I am currently teaching outside of my content area. My principal said I would have a mentor, but my mentor is inconsistent.
Really? I'm a mentor and I have not experienced that.
Well, that's my experience.
That's interesting. I think I have everything. Thank you so much for that. Okay. That's first.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to the
Okay,
second.
so if you saw any challenges, opportunities.
And how's the family? Oh, that is so good. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. It's a pleasure seeing you. How has your school year been going?
It's going awesome.
Awesome. I'm great to hear that. What are some great things that have been going on for you this year?
Well, as a new educator, empowerment grew, not only overcoming challenges, but also receiving feedback from colleagues helped me enhance my teaching strategies.
Okay, so were all those comments positive? How were they?
Some was positive, some were not negative. It was negative.
They were a little negative. Were you able to do something with those negative comments?
I was.
You was? Okay. So what did you do to enrich your teaching experience with those comments and that feedback?
I was able to do my pros and cons and pick out the goods that I need to re-strategize in the classroom as far as helping my students.
Oh, wow. So what did those strategies do for you? I mean, were you able to, how's the climate feel? How are your students? How's the communication?
I had to find a deep sense of belonging with students. And I think once they felt that connection with me, they was able to open up and talk more in class.
Oh, great. So once you connected with them and you built a good relationship, they were opening up. So
Yes.
that is so you loving it?
Yes, I do.
You are? I'm just excited about that. You know what? I want to thank you so much for this interview. Do you know anybody else who would talk to me or anybody who could recommend for me?
Yes, I do, and I will connect both of y'all when I talk to them.
Oh, that's great. And I look forward to talking to you some more time in the future to see how everything's going, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
She said, I'm a mentor and I never experienced that. That kind of makes the first person feel as if what I feel is not of importance to you. So I think that's when people say, oh, I didn't experience that, it makes it make you feel as if I'm wrong that I feel that way. So I think that, right. Yeah, I think that's
Because everybody's experience is different.
It kind of felt like.
See what our ECEs are saying they need, and that helped us to focus on what our change ideas are needed to be. So we showed you guys the 7 that NEA already has kind of outlined, and from those 7, we were able to hone in on the 4 that were unique or that our area specified, and then we began to develop action steps and create a timeline to implement these change ideas. We once again went back to mapping to identify who could help us do this. And then we wanted to plan avenues to communicate to the stakeholders that, hey, we are about to do this, we're doing this, so we wanted to share this information with you. And so for that, we created a engagement communication timeline or a template. I don't know what the second mic went to. And Ms. Jones is going to explain this to you.
All right, guys, so part of my role on our team is communication, and that was something that was kind of new. And I've been working with some of the NEA staff and just some great people in learning the process. But engagement is important. As a member, as a local president, whatever role you're playing, we want our members engaged. For Project ENERGI, we want our members engaged too. And so we had to start being really strategic about how we were engaging, and it needs to be organized. And because this is grant funded, we also wanted to come up with some documentation, like how do you document communication? Because we're sending out emails, we're doing the social media, we're posting, we're creating videos, we're doing all these things, but we know we're doing it, but how do you like, where is something tangible to say we're doing it? So we came up with an ECE engagement communication plan. And so we started off with, we need to be very specific in who we're reaching out to and why. Who are your stakeholders? Because different stakeholders are going to have different messages. So our first piece is identify who you're sending your communications to. If we're posting something on social media, it might be for every single person, because anybody who knows anything about Project ENERGI needs to know this information. But if it's an email, there may be a specific group of stakeholders that we're targeting that we need to reach. It might be the last participants of our Peddlers events, and we just want to give them an opportunity to come and get some more of what we present to them in that Saturday PD. So we're just going to send it to those 40 people that were present last Saturday. So different asks, different groups. The deliverable is going to be what we're asking of them. Can you register for this event that's coming up? Can you identify one ECE in your building that you can share this with and bring them to the meeting with you when you come on Saturday, things of that nature. We identify frequency. How often does this need to be shared? If Moneike is doing social media and we say, hey, can you post this to the ECEs or to everyone on Facebook and ask them to register for March 23rd event, and I need you to do this on Monday and Wednesday because that's when it needs to be posted, because we're gonna hit the beginning of the week, beginning of the week, the middle of the week, and we're gonna follow up on Friday and see how the people registered and see if this is working. Things of that nature. What's the priority? If it's something high need where the event is next week and we have 5 people registered, hey, we might need to increase our social media presence. We might need to do some phone calling, some text messaging, and some group meetings, different strategies to reach those individuals. So then our delivery method will be how we're going to deliver it. Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it Instagram? Are we going to post a cute video on TikTok? Like, what are we going to do to get that message out there? And then because we're sending this to one person on our communication teams, We always provide them an opportunity, our members an opportunity to provide comments to her. Like if I say, hey, please reach out to me on Thursday and let me know what's our reach on Facebook. And if the reach is low, then maybe we need to try something else, things of that nature. So this document was created just for us to organize our communication and our efforts. And you can use this document, you can tweak it to also do something similar in your locals, or if you're using an initiative and you want to organize your communication. But that was a big part of our planning, was communicating. It's great if you plan an activity. You guys, our very first event, we were super excited and we were ready, and 2 people showed up. 2. And we learned so much from that. First of all, the timing was bad. We did it the week before spring, the Friday of spring break. So teachers would get out there, That was a learning lesson. I mean, so we had to think about time, and we had to think about.
It was at
Stars and Stripes, which is like an arcade type
for
place.
2 beverages. We had food. It was a big deal.
It was a big deal with no people there to enjoy the big deal. But it was a learning moment. Right. But we looked at, okay, we dropped the ball on communication big time, because first of all, we put the information out about 2 weeks before the event. We learned as a team that a minimum of 3 weeks for anything we communicate. We got an event going on, you're gonna start hearing about it 3 to 4 weeks in advance, because we need an opportunity to first put it out there. You guys get a feel of it, you know about it, register for it, and then after a week passes, we need to re-strategize and see, okay, if we aren't halfway of our participatory goal, then what can we do to increase engagement? And so we go back to the drawing board and we say, well, let me create another video. Let me create another flyer. Let me do something so that I can try to get our numbers up. Let's increase our presence by reposting and sharing, things of that nature. Dr.
And I was just gonna say, this was all along we were going through not having access to the ECEs. So we planned this big event thinking they would come, right? We're feeding them, we got, it's off campus, and it's still bad timing. It was a lot of things. So it is constantly rethinking, evolving, redos for our team. Yes.
And we were kind of excited to say that we've made strides with the communication component, because now our average participants for pedals is about 40 to 45 participants. And that's great for a Saturday morning for teachers to come out and listen to you on a Saturday morning. And then we removed like stipends, and they still came. We were so excited. Like this month, February was our first event where we said, okay, these stipends, we can't fund stipends forever, but we're gonna continue this great work. And our participation rate continued. Like, I think we had just as many people as the month before. So we were really excited that it's meaningful enough to them that they want to come. And so we've just seen growth in our initiatives simply because of our communication efforts.
Those crumble cookies are worth it too.
Oh yeah. And then we strategized. We didn't talk a lot about engagement, but we kind of do think about different ways or things that we can do to be strategic and engaging. So we might do hey, we've got a sweet surprise for you, and we advertise sweet surprise for a couple of weeks. And so for our sweet surprise, we bought everyone a crumble cookie that registered. I think it was the first 20 participants that registered for an event got a crumble cookie. That made them really excited. That crumble cookie worked, you guys. But doing different things like that. And we've got some this month we're doing Male Madness. And it's March, so it's March Madness. We're doing Male Madness, so we're advertising that, and we're really excited because we're focusing on the guys and their perspective. But it's about the message that we're delivering. Is it landing? Because if it's landing, they're coming. And so we think we're doing some things right now in that area. We still got a lot of growth areas, but I think we're doing okay in that area.
All right, so step 4 is implementation, and that's kind of where we are right now. We're implementing, we kind of prioritize what the change ideas and action steps are that we focus on, and we showed you guys before. We began the process of how we're going to initiate these engagement activities by planning it out. As Ms. Jones already explained, multiple methods of communication. We had to ask the ECEs what methods they use, because we were told Facebook is for old people.
That's it.
And like, what do you mean? Right, so we had to let our guard down and find the ways to communicate with them. So like TikTok and all that wonderful stuff.
Let me know if you want. I'll do a video for y'all. Maybe I want to
See, there you go, right there. And so then most importantly, after every event that we do, like I said, the ECE voice is important. So we survey our participants. What did we do well? What did we not do well? What can we, how can we make this a better situation or scenario for you? And like I said, we try to remove all barriers, and Ms. Johnson said it, but we even offer childcare on Saturdays when we do our pedals. So we have 2 ladies that are set up for us. We have activities for the kids and so forth. So like I said, anything that would keep them from coming, we try to eliminate that. So because we want them there, because we're doing these things for them, and ultimately we need them to be there. So here's some of the strategies we looked at for planning our engagement. Just some of the things you want to consider when you're exploring the needs in the interest of the ECEs, and prioritizing when you get ready to plan for your event, and of course making it relevant, realistic, and reasonable. Just remember, you're taking the information that they are giving you, and you're planning these supports based upon what they say they need.
Right. And we focus a lot on a participant-driven agenda. A lot of times, guys, we'll plan something, and we got a plan, and we're ready to go. But if we get our data and we look at the survey data, and the data say, no, we need this, then that agenda that we had that was pre-planned goes out the window, and what they say they need is what we deliver on. So we start our meetings by saying, hey guys, this is a participant-driven agenda. So it may not go with what is on the paper. If we spend an area in a specific, we spend time in a specific area, it's because that's where you need to be, and that's where you're showing us you want to be. And so we're gonna honor and respect that, because a lot of the time that voice isn't heard. And so we try to just stick with participant agenda.